And we want to continue on real cases, real life cases, with a panel that is going to be moderated by Mr. Roche from Capgemini. And we're going to see how transformative AI can be in the enterprise. The floor is yours.
Hello everybody, I'm Jérémy Arroche. I'm very happy to be the moderator of this roundtable. So you came here to learn more about GenAI. What is GenAI? Let me tell you my opinion. GenAI is a little bit like a meal. You want to make it the best as you can. So you add a lot of ingredients, but you know that at the end of the road, the only thing that you want is your meal to be good. And to taste good, you need to be on the right timing. Raise is on the right timing, and I'm happy to invite here the speaker of this roundtable that I think will be right on timing too. So please, Gabriel Hubert from Dust. Biljana Kaitovic from ENGIE. Bruno Zerbib from Orange. Philippe Battel from Oracle. And Laetitia Cailleteau from ACCENTURE. Bonjour, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Gabriel. Gabriel, you're the CEO and the co-founder of Dust. Dust is already famous at the very beginning of its life. You founded it with Stanislas Paulu. Dust is a future licorn. That's what we hope to you. And it's already something that you know a lot about scaling because you were in charge of the scaling of other licorns, of unicorns in the past, like Alan, like Stripe. And now today, Dust is facing a big increase of activity with a lot of famous customers like Alan, Quanto, Payfit. And we wish that you will raise the happiness of France at the highest level of artificial intelligence. Bonjour, Gabriel.
Bonjour, Jérémy.
Hello, Biljana. Biljana, you are the Executive Vice President of ENGIE in charge of digital and information technology. You're a member of the Executive Committee, and you're passionate of digital from very soon because you like so much digital that you have 3 different Masters of Science in digital. So you started mixing digital and business very soon, and you will tell us what you do at ENGIE.
I'll share a bit of that, and thank you. Thanks, Jeremy.
Bonjour. Bonjour, Bruno Zerbib. You are the CTO of Orange, and you are also a member of the Executive Committee. You have a strong experience in big French companies like Schneider Electric or Altis. You are a graduate of Télécom Sud Paris and University of Paris-Cité. And we don't need to present Orange. Orange is one of the biggest French companies in charge of telco. Bonjour et bienvenue, Bruno.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Philippe, bonjour. You are the VP of Artificial Intelligence for Oracle in charge of Europe, Middle East and Africa. Before Oracle, you were in charge of data and AI for Amazon Web Services in EMEA. And previously, you held a lot of leadership roles in the cloud and data industry all over the world. And you are also in charge of a strategic partnership with NVIDIA GPUs. Bienvenue.
Merci, Jérémy.
And Laetitia, you come from Accenture. You have a strong experience in consulting, 25 years of consulting and helping large and corporates to do a lot of different things with AI, with data, and now with GenAI. You have a role also related to the European new regulation, the AI Act, because you were part of the high-level group that presented this new regulation. Bienvenue also, Laetitia.
Merci.
So my first question is going to be quite easy. Can you tell us a concrete example of something new, a new activity, a new business, or a new business model that you created through or with generative AI?
So for us, it's quite easy because Dust was born with this technology. My co-founder, Stan, was at OpenAI as a research engineer for 4 years before deciding to start Dust. And so pretty much every use case that we enable is in some way, shape, or form something that was not quite possible before, generative artificial intelligence. And the concrete example that I always like to give is that of reformulating information internally on the fly. The ability to capture information and translate it into one of many other internal languages is one that I find particularly powerful. So if a marketing team can know automatically that production code has changed and that the features that were not live have become live, and that a certain segment of customers can be notified, that's a use case that wasn't possible. You had to sort of knock and maybe beg about the update, and they can get that automatically thanks to Dust, but just more generally thanks to GenAI.
So being faster, being more automated, being live. Can you give us like a concrete example of things that you do for your clients and that makes like life easier because things are going faster now?
So we connect the information that lives internally within these companies with these models and help them deploy assistance on very specific use cases. At Allen, 600 employees, more than half the company uses Dust every day, 80% uses it every week. And giving you one concrete use case would be putting some shade on the 150 other assistants that are being used. But automating the ability to read a budget is one that I find quite interesting. It's like, I'm not on the finance team, but I'm a hiring manager. I need to know which number I can trust. That's one that's been made possible.
I heard about a word. Tell me, see if this word is related with what you do. I heard about RAG. Do you do RAG? What is RAG?
Yes. RAG is just the acronym for Retrieval Augmented Generation, which, like any acronym, deserves to be broken down and just taken at face value. It's generating an answer, but augmenting the answer by retrieving information first. So it's Retrieval Augmented Generation, and that's it. That's
so nothing related with the Jamaican song. It's not ragtime. It's just RAG for GenAI.
It's not ragtime. Yeah, absolutely. It's RAG for GenAI.
Thank you very much. Biljana, let us know what you do for ENGIE and what new things you brought it to ENGIE through GenAI.
Well, first of all, for people who don't know in the room what ENGIE is a global energy company. So the examples that you have seen from Aviva would be applicable to us because, of course, we have wind parks, we have wind turbines that we are optimizing their maintenance with GenAI. So it's one of the examples. I will not be talking about that because you've seen a little bit of how that looks like. We do quite a number of things, like in employee productivity increase through different co-pilots, etc. But an example I would like to talk to you about is related to health and safety. So we're an industrial company. We do everything from the generation, power generation, we have different renewables, we have nuclear, we trade, and then we actually sell that to different customers, B2B, B2C customers. And in the range of industrial activities, of course, health and safety is one of the core priorities that we have to make sure that we save lives. And recently we have started deploying generative AI, I think in a rather unusual way, to make sure that we can learn from a very big body of knowledge that we have gathered through the decades. Every time there's an industrial incident, there's safety incident, we learn from an incident to make sure it doesn't happen again. But you can imagine how much text, how many documents there are, and it's really difficult to get all of that knowledge to the person who is about to do some work. So we're now applying GenAI to actually put it in the hands of people who are about to do some work so that the tool can help them to figure out where are the biggest risks and what should they be actually paying attention to or most attention to. So in that way as well, we start with our health and safety workers so they can recognize what are some of the trends that maybe before just as humans we weren't able actually to spot so that we can have more targeted campaigns. So on one hand, it's not a new business model, it's not a new business, but it's really, we believe it's going to help us to save lives, which is more important than starting a new business model.
I know that ENGIE is a company with a lot of infrastructure. You have a lot of tech, but also a lot of firms and a lot of different activities. How do you manage to use the new skills and the new ideas coming from GenAI when, for instance, you want to do a better predictive maintenance?
So we're not new to AI, we're not new to latest tech, so of course we're doing predictive maintenance for quite some time. I think now GenAI is coming and democratizing AI, so this is really what's different about it. Of course it can generate a lot of things, text, voice, whatever, but it makes everybody able to actually use technology in a way they couldn't before. Before it was a bit of a thing for a number of geeks, so us who could speak the machine language, I'm a programmer by background, and you are a bit of a special category. Now everybody can speak to the machine because machine now suddenly can speak our language, and I think this is really what's different. So for me, in industrial space, it's more how do you apply Gen AI to the areas where before you would be applying machine learning, where you would be applying analytics, etc. And now you just augment it with Gen AI for easier use, or for instance, for better use of unstructured text for people who before would actually shy away from it a bit.
AI was for nerd people, Gen AI is for
Exactly.
everybody, for cool
Exactly.
people, and makes maybe nerd people more cooler now, so they can work all together.
I've never seen so many people being interested in what I do in digital and IT as now, huh? So democratization is here.
Thank you very much, Biljana. Bruno, tell us what you do at Orange, and in specific, what new things you do through Gen AI.
So at Orange, we are essentially changing every part of the company with AI and generative AI. It's affecting the way we are working with all of our people, all of our employees, the way we're thinking about the relationship with our customers, and the way also we are thinking about our network. So with our employees, what we've done, we have built something called Dis-nous-tout, which it's a French word that means tell us everything in English. But essentially what we've done is we've built a front end that runs on top of multiple LMs. So we announced with Mistral AI that we're doing it, with OpenAI, working obviously with Meta as well, and all the other big LLM providers. And we're making sure that all of our employees have access to all of those LLMs behind that backend.
So Dis-nous-tout is for every employee at Orange.
Yeah, and so the crazy thing is that we have trained, so I think it's the record, at least in Europe, 25,000 people. And we have about 1 million requests on a weekly basis right now. So it's just through the roof. People using it for like content generation, text, video, what have you, everything.
Can you have a view on what kind of question do people ask to Dis-nous-tout? Can they tell us, like, is Bruno a cool guy?
Yes, and the answer is not yet good enough, so we need to continue to train the model. So no, we're doing a lot of things. We are obviously using this technology to get much more familiar with content generation as you guys use it today with ChatGPT, for instance, but also we're using this to produce content. You know, any kind of content could be PowerPoint presentation, Word presentation, and so it's really creating some kind of awareness. The second thing we do, which I think is, and obviously all of our developers are using this technology very actively. We have already an increase of 30–40% of productivity with our developers using this technology. The second thing we do is customer value management, relationship with our customers, really moving away from the era of chatbots. I'm sure you guys have been interacting with stupid chatbots for too many years. So good news, we are going to walk away from that. And the LLMs are completely changing the game. But also we're doing things that are incredible in terms of churn reduction, understanding what our customers want, proactively being able to say, hey, maybe this is something new that is available. So not just caring about people who are about to change, but proactively making sure we reach out to them using AI. Extremely powerful.
And I know also that at Orange, you are quite in advance in terms of COMEX training. So
Yes.
do you already train your COMEX to better understand the new era of GenAI?
Yes, I'm championing this. That's my job full time, and there's no way to escape that. And the last bit, which I think is, in many ways, again, as a geek, that's the one that kind of one of the craziest, most exciting part is we're changing our network. So first of all, for those who don't know, we spend billions of dollars on a yearly basis just investing on what we call CapEx, that get into building fibers, deploying antennas, you know, making sure that you get the best possible coverage. And with AI, now we have a much better, smarter, predictive model. We make sure that you're going to get much more 5G availability, so with the same investment. That's the crazy thing. The second thing that's even crazier is, as you said, we've been using AI for a long time. We've been automating our network for a long time. But now we're using AI to make it smarter. And the crazy thing on top of that, we're using GenAI to interact with our network. So now, if you remember like Space Odyssey, like HAL 9000, we can actually talk to our network. And we can get a sense of what's going on, and people who don't have necessarily the most technical background can help troubleshoot the network. So that's really another proof point of how disruptive that has been for us.
Thank you very much, Bruno. So we have an opinion from a startup, from large corporates, but there's also a real life GenAI, the backside of everything that goes well and works well. So we are happy to have Philippe, because Philippe, you come from a company that does reality with AI. So what's your opinion about what new is brought by GenAI?
Yeah, so there are a lot of innovations. I think we capture some of that here. If I look at the GenAI, you have that in the application level. So I think Gabriel mentioned that. So if I look at, for example, BBVA or Aon, they are using that for summarization of documentation or compliance, automatically add text to make sure that when it goes out, it's legally approved. And then you go to, like Biljana was mentioning, like construction. Yeah, so you can have like digital twin, for example. We are working on a project with Neom. So Neom is this giant city the size of Belgium, basically. And there is something called The Line, which is 170 kilometers long and 200 in terms of wide. And in there, you have actually innovation in the city. And it's really expensive to do real-life construction. So they are doing digital testing before they experiment. And that's massive saving. And that was not possible before. Yeah.
So how does it work when you want to have a relationship with a big corporate? Like in reality, how does it work? Like, do you need to work with startups, with consulting companies? Do you need to have a preparation of the minds by the idea that you need a strong strategy? Is it more an IT problem, an upgrading of what's already existing? How does it work at first steps?
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good question. So nobody starts from scratch. I think I worked with Biljana in the past in my previous company. So you have a long list of amounts of existing assets. Could be tens and tens of databases, data warehouse. It could come from multi-cloud providers like where I was in Amazon, Oracle, etc., etc. So you have all of this data, and data is being used to do your business outcome. Let's say if you're in drug discovery, I work with a company, Bioscience, and they are doing DNA sequencing. So it's DNA on a chip. You can use actually the body DNA to be memory, actually you can think of things like in the future, yeah? And so it's really important to leverage all of these assets in different form. I think we talked about generative AI. There is also all of the side effects, I would say. If you look at OpenAI and ChatGPT, it's 65% accurate without drag. Basically, it gives you an answer, even if it has no answer. Yeah? So you have to really give that kind of the source of truth based on what you are doing. And it's really, really important to kind of integrate all of these aspects. The other thing is how you deploy, how you go there. There are like two main choices. You could decide to just use API and you go on all of these marvelous models from Mistral and Microsoft, etc., or you could decide to build your own LLM, and then you are working with our partners NVIDIA. You have this infrastructure. It could be tens to thousands, and so the price performance will be important, and the way you deploy will be important as well. As an example, if you are in a country with a lot of regulations, then basically you may want to be on-premise. And in that context, we have something called DRCC, which is a deployment of a private cloud on your term at customer level. So if you have like, I don't know, the EU AI Model Act or regulation for finance, basically we have now the capability to do that at the customer, and they operate the same way. And the last point is, how do you manage from an operational standpoint? Is this centralized management with a dedicated team of ML data science people and domain experts, or is this decentralized? Everybody will have a point of view. I think it's really important to get, my colleague here was really right about that, get the COMEX on board, because otherwise you have marvelous project, no KPI, where's the money, what's the outcome of that? It's becoming very important. I think you talked about that. And the second thing is the governance model is really important to give you the ability to integrate the new level of innovation. Mistral is great, next day is cloud, next day is whatever. So I think you have a need to integrate whatever is going to be the next one.
Philippe, there's also a big war of chipset beneath the war of GenAI. We need more GPUs. NVIDIA has a market cap going up to the sky. So what can you provide to your customer through the partnership that you have with NVIDIA?
Yeah, I think we have a very unique partnership. I have to believe, because we are right, there is also a context. So if you are Amazon, Microsoft, Google, you compete with NVIDIA. You have your own TPU, etc. We don't. So as Oracle, we basically are just NVIDIA, basically. So that's number one. Number two is we have implemented the blueprint of NVIDIA, so DGX Cloud, which is the advanced service of NVIDIA runs on OCI. Microsoft Bing runs on OCI, Databricks, and through Mosaic ML runs on OCI, etc. So it's really because of the price performance, the way the network is done, and the blueprint of the architecture. So we have tens of thousands of GPU available to build models with you guys, together with the partners, and that's really important to have this availability. You're absolutely right. Yes.
So we can see you in the corridors of Raise and
I'd
ask
love
for
that.
GPUs. You have GPUs on you.
Yeah, I have in my pocket. I was at, just one story, I was at the DGX event in San Jose. I lived 5 years there, I was there. And Jensen was on stage and said, in the early days I was able to bring it, and now, it's kind of like a, massive, it's like, I don't know, half a ton or something, so it's impossible now. It's not, a GPU is not just, this little chip, yeah. It's quite like a car or something, yeah.
Thank you very much, Philippe. Laetitia, so as a partner at Accenture, I'm sure that you see a lot of different stories about GenAI coming from a lot of different companies, a lot of different industries. What keeps you like the most interesting project or the most ROI-based project that you've seen through GenAI for your customers?
Thank you for the question. I think we are at Accenture disrupting ourselves first. We've heard, content production, so we have a, what we call Accenture Sound, which is about marketing content creation, and we do bring this at the next level for our client. We also disrupt, we're a big technology company ourselves, on how we actually accelerate change delivery for the software delivery life cycle. And it's not just the co-pilot, it's like going all the way from requirement gathering all the way to testing and coding. Actually, coding and co-pilot is one small subset of a project. Very often when we go and disrupt some of those life cycles, we realize that people that are engineers, they don't spend that much time coding. So we do disrupt ourselves massively, and then we have stood up what we call our generative AI studios across Europe, so we have 12 of them, and they are very much industry specific or function specific. And what we found is, it's a little bit, I love this analogy of electricity. When the electricity was invented, it was just to replace candles. And actually, it created opportunity to create like electroménager kind of, how do you say that?
Devices.
Appliances, and then it created factory, and then it kind of created a movement from rural to city, created cities. And I think with generative AI, we are at that stage where we are quite incremental and organic in the way we find the use cases, but they can be very disruptive, in a few years. So I think my advice is to kind of keep the eyes wide open. The opportunities are there. The example project I wanted to give you is we're looking at the generative AI multimodality. I'm going to take an example which is in the US. So we have launched this COE with the Stanford University, Stanford School of Medicine, as well as Stanford Healthcare. So they have a lot of healthcare data. And what we're doing is we're mixing data from cancer patient, because typically, medicine is very siloed. So you get somebody that's specialist about your lungs, or you get somebody that's specialist about, your brain or your heart or whatever. And what we're using the multimodality of GenAI to mix all those data together to find pattern and really move towards more holistic pattern recognition, memory. And I think that's a wonderful usage of generative AI that not many have started to explore. But ultimately, the idea is to kind of help, cancer patients live longer.
This roundtable is about GenAI, but it's also about blueprint and transformation of a corporate, of an enterprise. Like blueprint is a very special word in the consulting world. Can you explain to us what is in reality making a GenAI blueprint with the customer? How does it work?
There's blueprint at many levels. So, we say we have 5 fundamentals, for example, at Accenture, which is always lead with value. What we found is a lot of companies, they do small proof of concept, and then they don't really deliver meaningful value in a way that's helping them change and transform. So we kind of, so you have business blueprint of where the value lies in a particular industry. And quite interestingly, it's about challenging the orthodoxies. we have one orthodoxy, and you mentioned one, which is the chatbot. Chatbots are not working. Well, you know, we were the first in Europe. I was leading a conversational AI practice for 8 years before, so I've found that orthodoxy in the market very often. In Europe, we started with a conversational AI system much earlier than the rest of the world, and it was in the early 2000s. And there was no AI in it. It was quite deterministic, rule-based, and all of that. And we had this use example of, you know, IKEA was one of the first to use chatbot, and you would ask it, you know, give me the sofa that's not blue, and it would just give you all the blue sofa, because you wouldn't understand the negative. So, you know, like, so we have business blueprint, and, you know, like, the value is very often in challenging orthodoxy, things you believe are set or right. Actually, how can you change them? Then we have technical blueprint. Obviously, you need a platform, you need access to the model, you need access to the chip, you need to standardize those blueprints, so not every department is kind of chaotically kind of doing that. Then we have the responsible AI blueprint, and that's the one I'm very passionate about, which is how do you do that right? How do you comply with the EU AI Act, all the regulation coming through? How do you take a decision at the data scientist level that the top of the table is going to feel comfortable, yeah? Because if you decide to launch a project on credit scoring and you don't have the right data, or you decide to debias your data in that particular way, are you alone as a data scientist allowed to take the decision, or which governance do you have? So, you know, there's blueprint at many levels, and all of them are needed to make a difference.
I have the feeling that the audience is very happy because they just had a free ACCENTURE mission of blueprint. So thank you very much for all the details and all the explanation.
We're all there to share. I think we're in a new phase of transformation, and I think, you know, I think it's not about kind of keeping the information. I think it's about building the future together. So very happy to share more if you want at our booth.
Thank you very much, Laetitia. Let's continue with this round table. So we're talking about the transformation of enterprise, but transformation goes with people. So we need people to accept new technology, to understand, to be trained. We need to have a more specific change management. It's a specific word, but would you be able to explain to us, for GenAI, what's specific to people, to culture, and to skills? Gabriel, what's your opinion on that?
What we've observed in the companies that we work with, and obviously the caveat is that we work with smaller, younger, faster growing companies, so I don't know the extent to which it's applicable to all the companies that are represented on this panel. It'll be lovely to hear and learn, is that the best predictor of the ability to adopt and quickly master this technology is actually an iterative and exploratory mindset. And almost uncorrelated with technical level. I think I really agree with the comment that was made on the interface having allowed pretty much anybody to interact with the machine. So what we've designed Dust to be is essentially a heat-seeking SaaS that tries to find people who have an exploratory mindset. It's very, very horizontal by nature. It tries to integrate with as many data sources as possible so that one function doesn't get to feel left out. And the ability to create assistants or agents is left at a very simple and unintimidating level. The complex use cases and the complex workflows can be developed, and, you know, the entire orchestration platform that we have is available for those who really want to nerd out on it. But you can start with almost no knowledge. And that's what's been amazing to find in many of our customers. We're surprised by the people who pick it up, and who then in turn lead with a renewed sense of purpose of how they can very locally get rid of some of the repetitive and less interesting parts of their job. The customer service team at Penny Lane, initially a little tentative with the deployment of Dust. Is this going to take my job? Is this going to replace me? And then within a few weeks, this is absolutely not going to replace me, I can tell you that for sure. But these are the 5 things it's replacing in my day that I didn't like to do to begin with. And this is a person who had no coding experience. Her name is Eleanor, and who was just very exploratory in her mindset. So that's really what I would say is the #1 skill or trait.
So you make people feel when they use GenAI, they are still the owner of the process with which they are using GenAI. How do you work on the interface so that the people can accept to use a new interface for a new activity or a new way to do the same activity and make it as simple as it is, but as complex as you want the task to be done.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons we created the product layer company that we decided to create, because I think there's so much more to do than the actual just raw model and input-output paradigm. And we won't get to solve or go into enough detail today, but I think the two little spots of color that I really feel excited about is, one, we're moving the entire knowledge workforce from a world where we've been working with calculators, deterministic input, deterministic output. You press the same keys, you get the same results. And everybody, without knowing, is moving to a stochastic output world where I put the same thing in, but it didn't quite give me the same answer, but maybe it's okay. And the maybe it's okay has to be delivered by the product so that you trust it, so that you use it again, so that you understand when it's meaningfully different or meaningfully the same. And the second point on product and interfaces that I think is crucial is understanding latency really well. A core component of this technology is inference. Inference is slow, it's expensive. The bigger the model, the slower it is generally. And so there's a trade-off to be made between the front end and the back end of your product to say, at some point the conversational interface is not what I should get my user embarked in. I should be doing an offline process that tells you 5 minutes later, at the end of the day, at the end of the week. That really is a business requirement that needs to be well understood so that people don't spend hours dangling in front of spinners on a screen, but rather understand that in some cases they'll get the response immediately, and in others they'll have to wait a bit. So those are two spots we really.
So how does it feel when you're in front of the screen? You have a lot of tabs and a lot of chatbots open, and you're waiting for the question, and you have an ETA about how long the answer will come. How does it work?
That's what we'd want to avoid, because I think if people had recreated their world of many tabs and ETAs, we'd not be happy. But specifically understanding and inferring from the request, if it's going to be a complex multi-step workflow, building expectations with the user. I'll give a very simple use case for the audience. When you actually ask for an answer on a knowledge base internal to your company, there's going to be a step of retrieval. That step of retrieval, you can decide to show it or to not show it. It's a design decision to decide to say, hey, by the way, I'm searching for information first. And then you get a bunch of results. Do you show them or do you not show them? They might not be used by the model in the response. So there's another design decision there as to whether you let the results be transparently shared. You can then produce the answer. Do you stream the answer token by token, or do you wait, like Bard, now Gemini, decided to do, for the full answer to be created? And whether you're a B2B or a B2C product, you're going to have a different set of requirements. Perplexity is here today. I think that when you're in a B2C setting, speed is absolutely paramount, and you really, really want that, and you're going to be also very cognizant of cost because you're at a scale where not all your users are paying. So all these trade-offs have to be based on the use case. And then the last one is also citations. How do you close that feedback loop and help the space of evaluation? Is my answer correct? In the old world, you could either be, pretty convinced it was true or pretty convinced it wasn't true. But now you have 5 or 6 failure points. Was my input correct? Did I use the right model? Is my RAG strategy okay? Did the right chunks make it into the model? Did the chunks get processed by the right model in the right way? Is my output sufficiently clear? All those different evaluation points are now part of this feedback loop. And so you have to also make it very easy for users to provide feedback, which is the last one. I'm going to put an emoji. I'm going to say thumbs up. Does that mean I'm happy with the answer? Does that mean I trust the answer? Does that mean I don't quite trust it? Those are all super fascinating things. That's what
you're going to switch from the thumbs up to the star system of Uber, so that you have more details.
But seriously, that's really intuitive. Because I think a lot of drivers on Uber get poor. A lot of delivery people on not Uber, but delivery platforms for food get poor reviews because the food was not good. And that's a huge problem in how we decide to give control on feedback loops to algorithms, because in the case of retrieval augmented generation, in some cases what you're saying is our knowledge base is not up to date, not the assistant is wrong, and that's the kind of distinction we have to make.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. Coming back to people, to skills, to culture, ENGIE is big. How many people are working at ENGIE?
About 100,000 people.
So how do you make 100,000 people happy with GenAI, and what are the risks and the limitations you should be afraid of, or should be mindful of to be able to provide with the best experience of GenAI for all the people at ENGIE?
Yeah, so I would like to build on your answer, because I think you sketched very nicely a bit of a startup culture, right? So people with exploratory mindset, we have those. So in our 100,000, we have some of those, and that's great. So they just jump on it, you give them technology they're very happy to experiment with, they're very happy to play with. But we have some of the other ones as well. And we classify them as people with foggy. I don't know if you've heard about foggy, fear of getting in. So people who have not traditionally been very close to technology. And of course, even now, you read Financial Times, many articles are going to be about AI. Never before technology was so closely followed. So, the biggest companies by market cap in the world, except for Saudi Aramco, are digital companies. So digital has become an omnipresent thing in the businesses that are not digital native. So people do have this very strong fear of getting in. Like, I know I need to be part of this, but how do I become? Or how do I get in? And this is what in big corporates like ours that are not digitally native, this is something that is one of the core challenges that we have, or I would say core capabilities, or opportunities, because we have many other strengths. So if we can actually team them up with the amazing opportunities that new technologies bring, and it's now GenAI, of course, and technology is going to continue evolving. So we need to make sure that, on one hand, we enable people with the right training, so a bit of a top-down approach. So there needs to be training, and the training needs to focus on, okay, what are the capabilities of these technologies? What are the limitations? Because as you said, of course, the result comes out, and it's not deterministic, so the result is not going to be the same. I ask it once or I ask it twice, I will get different result. That freaks out people who don't understand that actually this is exactly what's supposed to happen, because it's a different type of technology. So we need to manage people's expectations, but as well we need to provide those who have the exploratory mindset to actually share with the people around them and to do a bit more of a movement making. So we need to cater for two very different types of audiences. And as well we need to make sure that our culture is such that it helps us to keep on being innovative, that it helps the growth mindset, so that it's not just, okay, we prepare now for GenAI and then we sit stable. No, we need to be able to be adaptive to any technology that comes our way, so that we can jump on it and think about the best use case to create. So I think it's super exciting time for any of us to be living. And then you mentioned we create the future. I truly believe we are actually creating the future, but we can only be at scale successful if we help all those people who are not so close to tech as many of us here are, to actually get closer to it, and we make it easy for them.
Can you just tell me a little more about regulation and how do you handle it at ENGIE, and how does it work to tell people, we give you a new technology, you're going to be happy with it. I mean, you need to be trained, but you'll be happy at the end of the road. But there are still limitations, and you should be concerned by certain times of risk. How does it work?
Yeah, so for a large corporate, risks, of course, are very, very important, and management of risks and mitigations of risks, etc. So it starts with being very, very open about what's almost allowed, what's not allowed at this stage, but as well following where the regulation is heading. So of course for all of us in Europe, and I'm sure for your company it's a very big deal, so for all of us, the AI Act that the EU has come up with is a very big deal. So we're all getting prepared to compliancy. What does compliancy mean, and to which extent do we go, and how do we actually start reading different algorithms we have, different models, which category they fall into. So this is something that we need to do in the background before we even go to the majority of our workforce. But for the workforce, what is important is that they understand what this technology or what the models are supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do, and that they understand what their role is. And this really needs to come with a lot of training, because even though it might sound very obvious, not for everybody it is. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Biljana. Bruno, tell us what you do at Orange so that people are happy with GenAI. What does it change in terms of skills or culture?
I feel like I'm going to be turning my brain to ChatGPT myself, reusing what I've heard so far and training my own model to generate the answer. It feels like it right now. Listen, I would have said like a month ago I would have given you a different answer. Honestly, right now for me the most important thing is humility. Everything that I think I understand, a month later I'm starting to have doubts, and we have to tune, like, it's the fine-tuning not of the model, is the fine-tuning of the way you think about AI. The word you use, Biljana, is like at scale, super important. Right now we are transitioning from the age of innocence to the age of anxiety. which means we have 130,000 employees, 26 countries, very different culture. You guys know that as well. And different languages, you know, obviously we have English, we have French, we have Wolof in Senegal. So trying to find a lot of material written in Wolof to train a model. But what is very clear, and I think kind of happened the last few weeks, we can joke about this, we've known about this for like forever, but I would say in a company like Orange, we realized the last few weeks, the last few months, that every job is going to be disrupted. We don't know yet how. Going back to your point about electricity was about replacing candles. We don't know yet exactly how. And so the challenge that we have, more than ever, is that we have to connect the technology people to the business people, and they have to co-create together the business models of tomorrow. Because if you don't have a sense as to where you're going, what you're going to be doing in 5 to 10 years, I believe Orange by 2030 will be a very different company. Most of the things that we're doing right now with a lot of human beings will be done with AI. It's a scary, scary thought. And so we have to tell our people in the company, don't be afraid. We're committing to you. First of all, we're going to continue to invest on training. And also, we are going to chart that path with you so that you understand if you're in the store right now, you've been like a support engineer, talking with people, how this is going to impact your life. Don't worry. The first thing is do not worry. So it's a big commitment in a capitalistic world to tell your employees to not worry, to embrace it. And for us, this is going to be extremely important that we have a strategic point of view. We are agile, so we know we're going to be partially wrong. We know that we're going to learn, we're going to make mistakes, but we need to have a clear vision, clarity in terms of what the future is going to look like. When you tell people that are operating networks, we're talking about dozens of thousands, and you tell them, you know what, we're going to put a big brain on top of the whole thing, and it's going to take care of everything. It's going to be much better than you. We know it's going to take many years, but it's a scary thought.
I have the feeling that you touched the idea that AI is not only about business and technology, it's also about philosophy, existence, and the way we're going to shape the future.
You're exactly right. You know, when you think about Orange, and for someone who joined that company not a long time ago, this is a company that has a unique DNA. It's obsessed with societal responsibilities, with social responsibilities, so social towards the employees, society towards the world. Everybody's concerned with the energy footprint, the carbon footprint of AI in our company. You know, we have committed to CO2 reduction by 40% by 2030 and get to being completely neutral. And then suddenly you look at those LLMs that are becoming 5x more demanding in terms of resources. We also have to figure out what is the version of that. How are we going to make this work? You know, how are we going to build something that's sustainable as well? Otherwise, we're going to get some backlash from our employees and then from our customers as well if we don't figure that out.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Philippe, we are reaching the end of the roundtable, so it's both a question but also an invitation to conclude. In your opinion, what does it change for the people, for the skills, and for the culture to work with GenAI?
I will take one story, quite exciting. I was at an event, and there was a startup meeting me, and the company is named CrewDog, and the guy was 17 years old. He said, I'm creating my new startup. I don't know anything about tech, but actually he's doing preceding. His business model is really solid, and we are helping him move to the business. So it's kind of exciting because I think Sal Atman said we are in this decade where you have one employee, you could be $1 billion. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's kind of moving in that direction, which is quite exciting. And I look at my own son. I have twins, 14 years old. My dad was a data scientist, 92. My son is into that stuff. And he say, oh, wow, we talk about prompt engineering. He say, it's dead, Dad. Now it's called agent AI. It's auto-prompting. So I think it's kind of what Gabriel was mentioning. It's evolving fast. I think the new people, the younger generation is going to help us move. Like in the years of the internet, you know, everything was becoming HTTP web. Now everything is AI. I mean, it's kind of like, that's about it. Yeah? It's still a tool in a way. We should not really mystify that too much. It's still a tool. It's marvelous. It does a lot, but it's a tool. And it can do amazing things. I think like, if you look at passive haptic system, like gloves, for example. So when I was young, I had a handicap, and I couldn't move my leg for a while. Yeah? And so now you have like gloves you put in your arm. It sends vibration, and then it sends signals to your brain. And Georgia Tech work on that. And basically, it creates signals in your brain. And then you take off the gloves, and now you know how to play piano. Yeah? So 10% of the blind people can do braille. Now you have 100%. You have people who have a stroke, you can fix that, etc. So there are a lot of innovation, fusion, nuclear, etc. So I think it's kind of like, what is the future, but what is today the tool, and what can we do about it? And the people play around, bring everybody together. I think Biljana was mentioning that through a journey of training, skilling, etc., etc. But the next generation, for me, is what's going to change that.
AI is for everything. Laetitia, I would like to give you the final words. Will you conclude on this roundtable, please?
Okay, so on the skill thing, definitely the World Economic Forum just published together with Accenture and a number of other companies a study that showed that 47% of the working hours would be impacted in the short term. So it is happening, that's for sure. It also says in that report that 95% of the workers are seeing the opportunity, but are very worried their company is not going to size it in the proper way. They don't trust their company to do something good for it. So I think it's a big journey, and it's not just about the tech. Everything is going to change, and we need to change it together to a better society. I think we can all agree that we have messed up a few things, including climate change and a number of things that are quite dysfunctional in this version of society. So I think it's all about kind of leaning in, working together, not the tech on one side, and not the business, and not the people that are the philosophies. It's everybody's job to create that better future.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you, Biljana. Thank you, Bruno. Thank you, Philippe. Thank you, Laetitia. Merci à vous.
Thanks a lot.